If you're watching this video, you found the insert in your compressor's box, and you are here to learn how to set up and use your new airbrush system. I quickly want to go over what's inside the boxes, and then we will get set up and start airbrushing. In your compressor's box is a compressor, a hose, and an AC adapter. Inside of your airbrush box is an airbrush. This looks like one piece, it's actually two. We'll get to this. It's called a quick disconnector. Some spare parts, needles, nozzles, and a tiny wrench that is used to change out those spare parts. Let's get the compressor wired up to power. So this is one end of the AC adapter, and here are two connectors. It's not this one. This one with the screw threads are for the hose. So this just pushes straight in, okay? We don't have power quite yet because we need to turn it on, but let's connect our hose. So this may be a little bit different from other airbrush systems where they just pop on. This one screws on, so both ends are the same. It doesn't matter which end you choose, and you're just gonna line it up and twist. Twist, 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 and you wanna make sure it's on there snug. You don't need to twist with all your might, but you do not want this loose because you will get air leaking. So that's one side. Next, let's connect our airbrush to our hose. And we're gonna need this piece here. There's actually two ways to connect your airbrush to your hose. Let's start with the first way. The first way is without the quick disconnector. Sorry, I was turning this. I'll get to that in a second. But this screws on. If you want to screw into your airbrush directly, you can do that. Again, make sure it's nice and snug. You don't want that loose. So this is the first way you can connect to your airbrush. I prefer the second way, and let's get to that in just a second. So I'm going to unscrew here. For our second way to connect to our airbrush, we're going to need this piece, which I mentioned was called the quick disconnector. Okay, so you are going to, right in here, you're going to pull. So all the motion is in the finger. It's actually two pieces. Okay, so to get it to connect, you push it on. To disconnect them, all the motion is the fingers, and it just pops right out. Okay, I don't have to pull on it. I don't have to do anything other than use my two fingers. It's a little awkward right here, but there it goes. Okay, so it's this piece here, and it literally slides. So let's connect one piece to the airbrush. Okay, so this sort of projection part goes to the airbrush. The next piece goes to the hose, okay? So the one with the hole in the middle screws into the hose. Everything should be nice and snug, but you don't need to crank with all your might, okay? Now we can connect directly in, and it's just pushing. It's just a gentle push, and it'll lock into place. And again, to release, it's a little easier when this is on the hose. It's all the motions in the fingers. I'm just sliding this piece with the three lines. I'm sliding it down, and it pops right out. Pushes in, pops out. Pushes in, pops out. Okay, now that we know how to connect, we're actually nearly all set up. Let's turn on our air compressor, and there it goes. So the first thing you may notice is that this is not running. Please do not think your unit is defective. Ours runs a tiny bit differently, and it is probably different from other systems you have used out there, okay? So this is not damaged, this is not defective. Don't panic, don't tap. It is working as it should be. Now that we're set up, we're gonna learn how to use our airbrush, how to activate the compressor. We're gonna talk about the two different kinds of airbrush guns that came in your kit, or you may have just bought the basic kit, which includes just the regular gun. We talked about how to connect our airbrush to the compressor, and I wanted to talk about the second airbrush in your kit. So you have your one that is for use with non-sheen or white, and then the one that is engraved with a 0.5, that one's going to be for sheens or shimmers, whatever you call them, and also for white. Just remember, larger opening allows for thicker particles. There's also an extra one of these in that box, and this screws on exactly like the first one. And let's quickly see how we can change between guns. So this is the first one. Again, it's in the fingers. I just pull that out, and now I'm on my shimmer gun. Okay, so those both fit into my stand, and it's, like I said, it's called a quick disconnector because we can easily go in and out. So from here, we know how to identify our guns and which ones used with what. So to recap, the 0.5 is for sheens or shimmers and white. And then the one that has no number engraved, that's going to be for your regular non-particle airbrush colors. Let's learn how to activate this. Okay, so let's talk about single action versus dual action. Most airbrushes in the confectionery arts are single action. Single action means you use one action, so you're just going to pull back. That's with the single action, you pull back on the trigger and you're going to release both air and color. Okay, this system is a little bit different. It's not harder, it's just different. You actually have a little more control as you spray. So this is called a dual action, and a dual action means we use two actions to release both air and color. The first is pushing down, and then after the pushing down releases air. So I'm getting air right now. And after I push down, I'm not going to release. If I release, my compressor no longer is active, okay? So it's a simultaneous motion. It's a push down and a pull back. So when there's no color, there's nothing in here, and I'm just going over the motion with you guys. As soon as I add color, you will see what we're doing, but push down to release air. While I'm pushing down, you don't have to push hard, just push until the trigger stops, and then start to pull back. So that's how we operate this. Let's talk about the shift button. Okay, so these are pressure controls. There's two ways to control the pressure on your airbrush. The first one is using shift. Please always airbrush at 3. The second one, we'll get to this in a second. This is called a MAC valve, micro air control valve, and we will talk about this later. This is more for fine tuning your pressure. In general, please do all your airbrushing with 3 on your compressor. So next we're going to start actually airbrushing. We're going to airbrush. I'm going to show you how much color to put in here and how I like to airbrush. We're going to learn a couple of features on both of the guns, and we're going to talk about how to layer colors. All right, so we are ready to start airbrushing. My compressor is not running yet because I haven't activated it. I'm going to put some airbrush color in here. Do you guys think we need to fill up the whole cup? We do not, okay? If you're doing a lot of cookies, you can put quite a bit of color in there, but I typically add 3 to 5 drops into my cup, okay? So that's enough for a few cookies. I also like to mix even dark colors, except maybe black. I like to dilute my colors with water, and that just helps them spray nicely. They also come out really concentrated. Just like your icing colors, the color will develop and bloom overnight. It might darken 1 to 3 shades, so I'll add a drop or 2 of water. Okay, and I'm gonna give that a quick mix. Let's talk about how this airbrush works. So again, I'm pushing down, I'm releasing air. Now I've got color in my cup, and I'm starting to I'm pulling back. Like we said, I'm pushing down and pulling back for dual action. And you can see I'm about 4 to 6 inches away, and my line is pretty faint. It's pretty blurry. Watch what happens as I get closer. Okay, I'm getting closer with each pass. What are you guys noticing? As I get closer, what you can see is that these lines become more thin, more hair-like, okay? So that leads us to the conclusion that when we're far away, we get wide, hazy lines. And as we get closer, we get thin, more defined lines. So that's a little bit on airbrush use. Let's talk about these little features of the airbrush. This is called a preset handle. And if I turn it all the way clockwise until it stops, one thing I want you to notice is that I cannot pull the trigger back. If your trigger is stuck, this is a quick troubleshooter. If your trigger is stuck, it's because you have this shut all the way. But so in order to understand fully what this feature does, I want you to close it all the way clockwise when it stops. Then slowly turn it, then start pulling on the trigger, okay? And then do it again. Just every time, open it up a tiny bit, push down, open it up, push down, see what it does. Go all the way. Okay, so what this does, this acts a lot like cruise control. It monitors, or not monitors, it sort of acts to prevent you from releasing too much color as you spray. So if I open it all the way, I'm just getting, can you see that? Giant blobs of color coming out, and I've run out. So that's what this feature, that's the feature of this preset handle. And I like to set it to a point where I just feel like I'm not gonna get these big blobs of color releasing, called hot spots, okay? I like to set this to a point where I feel like I'm not gonna get that. Now, let's talk about this, okay? This is a micro air control valve. In general, please keep this all the way open. So all the way clockwise is the correct position. And this just fine tunes your pressure. So if you're gonna get up and do some finer lines, I've run out of color, let me reload. If you're gonna get up and do some finer lines, usually you want, for finer lines, you typically wanna tune down the pressure a bit. So I'm gonna get over here and I'm gonna adjust the pressure a tiny bit. Don't forget to open this up all the way when you've done your fine lines. Open it up all the way, and otherwise you'll be airbrushing with less pressure than you want. These are the basic uses and functions of your Designer Cookies airbrush system. If you have any questions, you can send me emails. We have other videos on there. Before you attempt any troubleshooting, we recommend that you send us a quick email. Oftentimes it's just something that needs to be adjusted or a cleaning, and we can direct you to the correct video to use. It's a beautiful system, super easy. It might take a little practice at first, but just remember, you always want to airbrush in light layers. Don't get confused about dual action and single action. You're going to push down and then pull back. And we know you're going to really love this system.